Survival games are not the easiest genre to get into. It is designed to be difficult by default. Despite everything you survive, it will be poison, there will be no food, there will be no water. However, I haven't reviewed some survival games for you to get you started. Games with good tutorials or so good that you'll tear them apart anyway. Here are the best survival games for beginners. Rust is one of the all-time greats when it comes to survival games. Designed to be played with friends, the Rust multiplayer experience is like no other. Total chaos. Although that might not sound like the sort of game that beginners will enjoy, the beginner experience is what Rust is all about. You wake up naked on a beach. You have nothing. Absolutely nothing to your name. Over the next week, the servers are reset weekly. You'll work your way up through sticks and stones to eventually flying around the map in a mini-copter. If you've never played Rust, it's one of the best survival games out there. Raft may well still be in early access, but with over 100,000 positive Steam reviews, it's clear this game hits the nail on the head when it comes to survival. Dumped in the middle of an expansive ocean, it's your task to survive. Gather materials from the surf, catch fish to survive, and slowly build up your raft to help you handle the perils of sea living. You can play Raft on your own or with your friends. It's a good game for beginners to the genre because it's all quite straightforward. You're on a raft, on the ocean. You can explore the depths for short periods, but mostly it's about collecting stuff from the waves and defending your boat against any problems. Stranded Deep is a classic survival game. You're stranded on a desert island and must survive. It doesn't get much more simple than that. There are also fairly limited mechanics in Stranded Deep, nothing too complicated to craft, and no extremely difficult objectives if you don't count the mega sharks, of course. There is plenty to do in Stranded Deep. Grow crops, gather water, build a base, and eventually explore beyond your small island on the hunt for more resources. If you're brand new to the survival genre, we can't think of a better place to start than with Stranded Deep. Minecraft is one of the most popular games ever released. It has sold millions upon millions of copies across multiple platforms and continues to receive regular updates more than a decade since it was originally released. Minecraft is probably the most iconic survival game of them all, so it makes sense you might want to jump into the genre with it. There are many ways to enjoy Minecraft. You can jump into a creative server and spend hours just building, or opt for an ultra-hardcore survival run where death means the complete, total end of your save. Ultimate permadeath. Basically, Minecraft is also one of the best survival games to play with friends, with easy to set up private servers or ways to play together on public servers. Astroneer might be the ultimate survival game for beginners. This is because it's not so much about surviving as just sort of having a nice time. It's a beautiful game that involves surviving on an alien planet while heading out to explore new frontiers and environments. Astroneer is a total sandbox adventure. Because of the lack of, well, survival mechanics, this is the sort of game to play if you want a soft introduction to the genre. It's more about building and exploring rather than surviving, the ideal beginner's game. The Long Dark is a survival game through and through, in which players are tossed into an oppressive winter environment and left to fend for themselves. New players can quickly learn survival genre mechanics through the story, which guides players step by step on how to survive before throwing them out into the wilderness. For players not wanting to be overwhelmed by hordes of monsters, The Long Dark is a slow burn that eases in new players by not overloading them with survival tasks from the start. Varying difficulties make resource management vital as you explore the vast open world. With harsh winter winds taking the place of a score to the constant pressure to seek resources and shelter, The Long Dark is an immersive first-person experience. Subnautica throws players onto an alien planet where they have absolute freedom to explore the vast ocean around them. Where other survival games tend to hold players' hands too much or often too vague in terms of telling a story, Subnautica strikes a careful balance that allows players not to feel pressured or lost in unraveling the mystery of the ocean. From the jump, Subnautica does not tell you what resources you need to improve your gear and instead encourages you to explore shipwrecks and local ecosystems. With no map in a vast open world, players instead use beacons and various landmarks across the map to strategize exploration and learn what dangers this world hides. This hands-off approach is an excellent way for new players to just not worry too much about playing in the right direction. Despite the cute art style, Don't Starve is a creepy and fun open-world survival game that throws players into dark fantasy environments populated with demons. It's not the easiest game in the world, but it does help you understand how to survive the growing dark. Don't Starve has roguelike mechanics from permadeath, hack-and-slash combat, and different player characters that each have their unique abilities. If players want to invite a friend, then they can instead purchase the standalone version Don't Starve Together, which adds co-op. There are also community mods players can download to increase replay value. While there can be a learning curve, the game is not too punishing early on, and there are numerous guides and resources online. This War of Mine is a side-scrolling survival game with a strong anti-war message that places the player in the perspective of civilians caught in the crossfire of unrelenting war. While a lot of media tackling such a stance can come off preachy or heavy-handed in its execution, this War of Mine handles the subject incredibly well. For new players, the gameplay is straightforward, none of the mechanics are difficult to learn. The difficulty comes from the choices you make and how you decide to play the game. At its core, this game is about resource gathering and management as you try to feed, bandage, and shelter your growing group of survivors. The game is split into a day and night cycle, where during the day, players oversee their shelter, base, fixing up barricades, heaters, repairing equipment, and checking food stocks. In the night, players have to scout out nearby locations to scavenge for supplies, but avoid local militia or bandits. Among Trees is relatively recent and didn't make much of a splash in the sea of survival games since it was only released for one platform. That doesn't mean it's not worth playing, as it quickly sets itself apart by being more Swiss Family Robinson instead of Robinson Crusoe. It's a survival sandbox game set in a paradise where there's relatively little to no threat of dying, and all players have to do to stay safe is partake in the foliage and mushroom buffet until they get plump enough and start building a relaxing cabin in the woods. To that end, it's similar to Astroneer or No Man's Sky, except it's the tree hugger version of those games. Metro Exodus is very different in terms of gameplay from other entries in this list. It does introduce survival mechanics for new players in a way that may not be too overwhelming. With varying difficulties to choose from, a linear story, but an open-level design that allows for creative gameplay, this game is excellent for players that never played survival games. Metro Exodus is the third entry in a great series, so as far as the story goes, players may be a bit lost. There is resource management in terms of bullets and health items, but maybe not a crafting system to the extent of other entries. This game on lower difficulties is a great way to run and gun with an occasional challenge, and on higher difficulties becomes a tense challenge of taking on an apocalyptic environment. We have come to the end of our video. I hope you liked this list we prepared for you. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like the video. Bye for now, see you in our next video.